How dare you abandon me, and now you want to marry a new wife? I've been patient enough. Enough is enough. This marriage will not hold.
The first sound wasn't the music. It wasn't the pastor's microphone. It was the slap, loud enough to silence a hall full of rich Nigerian guests. Vanessa's palm landed on Michael's cheek like a final stamp of shame. For 1 second, nobody breathed. Not the bridesmaids in their champagne-colored dresses, not the groomsmen with their shiny shoes, not the aunties in tall geal that looked like crowns. Even the DJ froze, one hand still on the laptop. Michael, standing in front of the flower-covered altar in his expensive navy blue suit, didn't move. His face stayed turned to the side, eyes wide, mouth half open, as if his brain was still trying to understand what had just happened. Vanessa didn't give him time. She grabbed his suit by the chest, pulled him closer, and her voice cut through the silence. "How dare you abandon me, and now you want to marry a new wife?" Her gown was tattered, ash-colored, dust-stained. It looked like it had been washed too many times, and dried too fast in the harsh Lagos sun. Her hair was scattered, rough from wind and rushing. Her slippers didn't match. But her eyes were the kind that had cried too much, and then stopped crying. "I've been patient enough," she said, breathing hard. "Enough is enough. This marriage will not hold." Then she raised her hand again. Gasps erupted like popcorn. "God! Ah! Is that his wife? No, this one is mad." Vivian, the bride, stood in a bright white lace gown that hugged her perfectly. Her makeup was soft and clean, her bouquet of white roses and baby's breath was trembling in her hands. Vivian's eyes turned to Michael. Her lips shook. "Michael." "What is she saying?" Vivian asked, voice small, like a child lost in a market. Michael swallowed. His throat moved. No words came out. His silence answered Vivian faster than any confession. Vivian's bouquet slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor. The flowers bounced once, and that little bounce felt like the last heartbeat of the wedding. Vivian stared at the bouquet like it had betrayed her too. Then she looked at Vanessa, this dusty woman with pain on her face, and something broke inside Vivian. "You told me," Vivian whispered, tears already pushing out. "You told me your wife died 5 years ago during childbirth." Michael blinked quickly, like he could blink away the truth. "Vivian," Vanessa laughed, not happy laughter, the kind of laugh you hear when someone has carried too much for too long. "During childbirth," Vanessa repeated loudly. So he even added film to it. People started murmuring harder, heads turned, phones came out. Michael's uncle, Chief Bamadel, stood up quickly from the front row. "Michael, what is going on here?" he demanded, voice thick with anger and embarrassment. Vivian's mother stood too, clutching her geal as if it could protect her from disgrace. "My daughter will not be embarrassed like this," she shouted. "Michael, talk." Michael's best man leaned closer and whispered urgently, "Guy, say something, anything." But Michael's face had that look of someone who had been caught stealing in daylight. He wasn't just shocked, he was exposed. Vanessa's fingers tightened on his suit. "You left me in our house like I was a forgotten bag," she said, her voice shaking now. 10 years, Michael, 10 years. No child, yes. But I was your wife. I cooked your food. I washed your clothes. I prayed for your business when it was nothing." Her eyes flashed around the hall. "And you people are here smiling and dancing for him like he is a good man." Some guests looked away. Some looked uncomfortable. Some looked excited, because drama in Lagos is like free suya. People pretend they don't want it, but their eyes always follow it. Vivian took one step backward, as if the air near Michael was now poisonous. "No," she said, "no, this cannot be my life." One of Vivian's friends rushed to her side. "Vivian, come, let's go outside." Vivian shook her head slowly, tears pouring now, ruining the perfect makeup that had taken 2 hours. She looked at Michael again. "Were you ever going to tell me?" she asked, voice rising. "Or were you going to marry me and keep her hidden, like a secret mistake?" Michael lifted his hands, palms out. "Vivian, please, let's talk calmly. I can explain," Vanessa hissed. "Explain what?" "Explain how you blocked my number. Explain how you told the gate man to chase me the last time I came to your office in Victoria Island. Explain how you said, if you don't leave, I will deal with you." Michael's eyes flicked, just a small flick, like guilt checking the exits. Vivian's father, Mr. Ease, stepped forward and pointed at Michael with one shaking finger. "You are a disgrace," he said, voice low. "A full-grown man lying like a boy." Michael's face turned red. "Sir, please." Vivian didn't wait. She turned and ran. Her white gown swept the floor as she pushed through chairs and stunned guests. Someone tried to stop her. "Vivian, your veil." But Vivian didn't care. She ran out of the wedding hall like her life was on fire. Outside, the Lagos sky had changed its mind. Rain came down heavy, thick drops that hit the ground hard. Thunder rolled like a giant dragging furniture across the clouds. The decoration outside the hall, white canopies, gold ribbons, started to sag under the rain. Vivian ran straight into it. Guests rushed to the entrance, stopping under the roof, too scared to step into the storm. "Ah, rain. Thunder. Sea drama," one of the guests said. Vivian's heels slipped as she ran across the wet, interlocking stones. She stumbled, tried to catch herself, and then she fell. Her white lace gown was soaked in muddy rainwater. She sat there on the ground, not even trying to stand up. Rain poured over her like punishment. Her shoulders shook as she cried, big, loud sobs that didn't care who was watching. It wasn't a gentle cry. It was the cry of someone who had believed a lie with her whole chest. Inside the hall, the pastor was still holding the microphone. He looked like a man who wished he could disappear. "Brethren," he began weakly. But nobody listened. The wedding was already dead. Michael finally freed himself from Vanessa's grip, pushing her hands away gently but firmly. "Vanessa, stop this," he snapped. Vanessa stepped back, chest heaving. "Stop this," she repeated. "You are the one who started this." Michael looked at the guests, at the phones, at Vivian's family, at his own relatives. His eyes flashed with panic. Then he ran. He ran out of the hall into the rain. "Michael," his best man called after him, "your suit." But Michael didn't care anymore. His expensive suit got soaked in seconds. Rain flattened his hair, water ran down his face. He reached Vivian and dropped beside her on the muddy ground, like the rain had pushed him down too. "Vivian, I'm sorry," he pleaded, voice breaking. "Please, I'm sorry." Vivian turned her face slowly to look at him. Her eyes were red, her lips were trembling. She looked at him like she didn't know him anymore. Michael stretched his hand toward hers, fingers shaking. "I can explain. Please, listen." Vivian's hand moved fast. She slapped him, not once, twice. The second slap sounded even louder because the rain was quiet for a moment, like the sky also wanted to listen. "What else do you want to say again?" Vivian shouted, rain mixing with tears on her cheeks. "To tell me another lie, another story, another death?" Michael held his cheek, stunned. "Vivian, don't touch me," Vivian screamed, pushing his hand away. "You made me look stupid in front of my mother, my father, my friends, my colleagues. You stood there smiling while I walked into a trap." Guests gathered at the entrance of the hall, watching like it was a movie premiere. Some shook their heads, some whispered, some spoke loudly, because shame makes people bold. "I can't believe it. He lied that his wife died. So wicked. See how fine the bride is. He still deceived her." A woman in orange gel clicked her tongue. "I've never seen a thing like this," she said, "in my whole life." Vanessa appeared at the entrance too, her tattered gown now wet, sticking to her body. She stood under the roof, rainwater dripping from her hair, watching Michael kneel in the mud beside Vivian. Her face tightened. She didn't know whether to feel victory or emptiness, because she didn't come to win. She came because she was tired of being erased. Vivian stood up suddenly, struggling with her heavy, wet gown. She wiped her face roughly. "I am done," she said, voice low but deadly. "This is not love. This is wickedness." Michael stood too, trying to block her. "Vivian, please don't go. Let's talk privately." Vivian laughed again, just like Vanessa's earlier laugh, bitter, broken. "Privately," Vivian repeated. "So you can lie better?" She stepped away from him. Michael followed. She stepped again. He followed again. Then Vivian turned and pointed at him, rain dripping from her finger. "If you come close to me again, I will scream so loud that everybody in Ikeja will hear," she warned. Michael froze. because Vivian's voice didn't sound like a woman begging anymore. It sounded like someone who had just learned how to fight. Vivien turned and walked away into the rain, one step at a time, leaving muddy footprints behind her like evidence. Michael stood there, rain hammering him, guests watching him, shame holding him by the throat. Inside the hall, someone finally pulled the plug on the music. The speakers went dead. And in that silence, Vanessa's voice rose again from the entrance, soft but cutting. "Michael, you thought you could bury me and dance on my grave." Michael turned toward her, eyes wild. Vanessa took one step forward. "I'm not dead," she said, "and I'm not leaving this time." Michael's jaw tightened. His eyes darted around, at the guests, at the cameras, at Vivien disappearing into the rain, at Vanessa standing like a storm in human form. Then, slowly, Michael straightened his soaked suit, lifted his chin, and said something that made Vanessa's stomach drop. "Fine," he said through his teeth. "If you want war, Vanessa, you will get it." Vanessa blinked. "War?" Michael's voice got colder. "You think you can come here and ruin my life and walk away?" he asked. "You don't know what you just started." Vanessa's heart thudded, because she suddenly remembered something Michael had said during one of their worst fights, years ago, when she threatened to expose him. He had leaned close and whispered, "Vanessa, you know too much, and people who know too much can disappear." The thunder cracked above them again, and Vanessa realized, with a chill that had nothing to do with the rain, Michael wasn't just a liar, he was dangerous, and now, in front of everyone, he had just promised her something that sounded like a threat. As Vanessa stood there shaking, Michael took his phone from his pocket, wiped rain from the screen, and made a call, right there in the open. His voice was low, but Vanessa caught the words that made her blood run cold. "Hello, it's me. She has shown up. Do what we discussed." Vanessa's eyes widened. Her mouth went dry, and behind Michael, under the wedding hall roof, two men she had never seen before stepped forward, staring at her like they already knew her name. The rain did not slow down. It came harder, louder, like Lagos itself was angry. Vanessa stood under the leaking canopy at the entrance of the wedding hall, her chest tight, her fingers cold. The ash gown clung to her skin now, heavy and uncomfortable. Her slippers were soaked, mud stained the hem of her dress. But none of that mattered. What mattered were the two men behind Michael. They were not dressed like guests. No agbada, no lace, no wedding smiles. Just dark jackets, calm eyes, hands relaxed at their sides, the kind of men who did not need to shout to be dangerous. Vanessa swallowed. Michael ended the call and slipped his phone back into his pocket. He didn't look at her at first. He was watching Vivian's white dress disappear into the rain, like a dream being washed away. Then he turned. "Everybody should go home," he announced, raising his voice so the guests could hear. "This wedding is over." Murmurs spread through the crowd. "Ah, thank God. What a shame." Some guests rushed to leave before trouble started. Others stayed, pretending to wait for their drivers, but really waiting for more drama. Vanessa's heart was beating fast now. Michael walked toward her slowly, rain dripping from his nose, his suit sticking to his body. "You have embarrassed me enough for one day," he said quietly. Vanessa lifted her chin. "I didn't embarrass you. You embarrassed yourself." Michael smiled, not a happy smile, a thin one. "You think this is over?" he asked. Vanessa took a step back instinctively. The two men behind him took one step forward at the same time. That was when she knew this was no longer about marriage, this was about control. Before she could speak, a woman's voice cut through the air. "Michael!" Everyone turned. Vivian's mother stood at the edge of the hall, her jewel slightly crooked, rain splashing around her feet. Her face was red with anger. "You will hear from my lawyers," she said loudly. "You will pay for this disgrace." Michael opened his mouth, but she didn't let him talk. "You lied to my daughter," she continued. "You stood in front of God and men with another woman alive somewhere. God will judge you if court does not." She turned sharply and followed the rest of her family into waiting cars. The engines started. One by one, cars drove away. The wedding hall became quiet. Too quiet. Vanessa looked around. The decorations sagged, chairs were scattered, the altar flowers were already wilting from the rain blowing in. A wedding that had cost millions had died in less than 1 hour. Michael exhaled slowly. Then he looked back at Vanessa. "You should leave," he said. Vanessa laughed. "Leave to where? The house you locked me out of? The gate man you warned never to let me in?" Michael's jaw tightened. "I told you," he said, lowering his voice. "You should have stayed where you were." Vanessa felt a chill crawl up her spine. The two men stepped closer. One of them spoke for the first time. "Madam, it's better you go." Vanessa stared at him. "Or what?" The man did not answer. Michael raised a hand. "That's enough," he said. "Not here." He turned back to Vanessa. "Go home," he repeated. "We will talk later." Vanessa shook her head slowly. "There is nothing left to talk about." She stepped past him. Michael grabbed her wrist. Hard. Vanessa gasped. "Don't touch me," she snapped. Michael leaned closer. His breath smelled like rain and panic. "You think you have won?" he whispered. "You don't know me." Vanessa pulled her hand free. "I know enough." She turned and walked away, forcing her legs to move, even though they were shaking. Behind her, she heard Michael's voice again. "Watch her." Vanessa did not look back. She walked out of the wedding compound and flagged down a yellow bus, ignoring the stares from the driver and passengers when she climbed in, wet and shaking. As the bus moved, her hands started to tremble. The anger drained. What remained was fear. That night, Vanessa did not sleep. Her small one-bedroom apartment in Agege felt smaller than ever. The walls seemed to close in on her. Every sound made her jump. The hum of a generator, footsteps outside, a knock in the distance that wasn't even meant for her. She sat on the edge of her bed, wrapped in a thin towel, staring at her phone. No messages, no missed calls. She thought of the men, the way they had looked at her, not surprised, prepared. Vanessa whispered to herself, "You did the right thing." But the room did not answer. At 2:14 a.m., her phone buzzed. She flinched. Unknown number. Her finger hovered over the screen, then she answered. "Hello?" There was silence, then breathing. Slow and calm. Vanessa's heart began to pound. "Who is this?" she asked. The line clicked. The call ended. She stared at the phone. Her chest felt tight. She tried to call back. The number did not exist. Vanessa lay back on the bed, eyes open, heart racing. Michael had promised war, and he never promised things he did not intend to deliver. Across town, Vivian sat on the edge of her childhood bed in her father's house in Ikeja, still wearing the remains of her wedding dress. Mud stains, torn lace, broken dreams. Her mother sat beside her, rubbing her back gently. "It's okay to cry," her mother whispered. Vivian wasn't crying anymore. Her eyes were dry. "I feel stupid," she said quietly. Her father stood by the window, hands behind his back. "You were deceived," he said. "That is not stupidity." Vivian laughed softly. "He looked me in the eye and told me his wife died. He even cried when he said it." Her mother shook her head slowly. "Some men cry like actors." Vivian closed her eyes. The slap echoed again in her head, the bouquet falling, the rain, Michael's face when the truth stood in front of him. She opened her eyes suddenly. "I will not let him go free," she said. Her parents looked at her. "I will take him to court." Her mother gasped. "Court?" "Yes," Vivian said, sitting up straighter. "He embarrassed me in front of my family. He lied to me. He tricked me into a marriage when he was already married." Her father nodded slowly. "The law is on your side." Vivian picked up her phone. "I want damages," she continued. "I want the world to know who he is." She dialed her lawyer. The next morning, Michael woke up with a headache, the kind that sits behind the eyes and refuses to move. His phone was full of missed calls. His name was already trending. Blogs had picked it up. Wedding turns to war in Ikeja. Man lies about dead wife, gets slapped at altar. Bride runs into rain as truth explodes. Michael threw his phone onto the bed. He sat up and rubbed his face. The house felt too quiet and too empty. He stood and walked to the living room. Vanessa's picture used to hang there. He had removed it months ago. He thought he had erased her. but she had walked into his life again, loud, uninvited, unstoppable. His phone buzzed again. This time he answered. "Yes? Sir," his lawyer said, voice tense, "we have a problem." Michael closed his eyes. "What now?" "Vivian has filed a case," the lawyer continued. "She is suing for damages, $1 million. Michael sat down hard. "$1 million? "Yes," the lawyer said. "Fraud, deceit, emotional distress, public humiliation." Michael's jaw tightened. "And Vanessa?" he asked quietly. There was a pause. "She has also filed," the lawyer said. "Divorce, and she is asking for 50% of all marital assets." Michael laughed bitterly. 50%? He repeated. "Yes," the lawyer replied. "She is claiming abandonment, domestic violence, and contribution to wealth." Michael ended the call. His hands were shaking now. 2 women, 2 cases, 2 fires burning at the same time. He stood up and paced the room. This was not how his life was supposed to go. He had planned everything. The wedding, the clean start, the silence. Vanessa had ruined the script. Vanessa sat in a small law office, hands clasped tightly together. The lawyer across from her, a calm woman with glasses and a low voice, listened carefully. "You are doing the right thing," the lawyer said after Vanessa finished. 10 years of marriage is not a joke." Vanessa nodded. "I don't want pity. I want justice." The lawyer smiled faintly. "Justice can be expensive, but in your case, it is necessary." Vanessa looked down at her hands. "Do you think he will try to hurt me?" she asked quietly. The lawyer studied her face. "Has he threatened you before?" Vanessa hesitated, then she nodded. The lawyer's expression hardened. "Then we move carefully," she said, "and we move fast." Vanessa exhaled slowly. For the first time since the wedding, she felt a small sense of control. That evening, Michael sat alone in his office, staring at the city lights through the glass window. His assistant knocked gently. "Sir, there is someone here to see you." Michael frowned. "Who?" The assistant hesitated. She didn't give a name. Michael's heart skipped. "Send her in." The door opened. Vanessa stepped inside. Clean clothes now, simple jeans, plain blouse, her hair tied back. She looked calm. Too calm. Michael stood up slowly. "You have nerve," he said. Vanessa smiled softly. "So do you." They stood facing each other, the city humming below them. Vanessa broke the silence. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "I'm here to tell you something." Michael folded his arms. "What?" Vanessa looked him straight in the eye. "I'm not scared of you anymore." Michael's smile faded, because something in her voice told him she meant it. And for the first time since the wedding collapsed, Michael felt something he had not felt in years. The uncertainty. Before Michael could respond, his office door burst open and a police officer stepped in, holding a document. "Michael Adeyemi," the officer said firmly, "you have been served." Michael froze. Vanessa did not blink, and the paper in the officer's hand carried a word that would change everything. Michael did not take the paper immediately. He stared at it like it was a snake. The police officer stood calmly, arms stretched forward, document steady in his hand. The room smelled of air freshener and quiet tension. Outside the glass walls of the office, Lagos traffic moved like nothing had happened. But inside that office, something heavy had just landed. "Sir," the officer said again, voice respectful but firm, "you have been served." Michael swallowed and took the document. His fingers felt stiff. Vanessa watched him closely. This was not the Michael she used to know, the loud, confident man who walked into rooms like he owned the air. This Michael looked smaller, not weak, but shaken. "What is this?" Michael asked, though he already knew. The officer adjusted his cap. "Court summons. You are expected to appear next week." Michael laughed suddenly, a sharp, dry laugh. "Next week?" he repeated. "For what exactly?" "For fraud, deceit, and emotional damages," the officer replied. "Filed by Miss Vivian Okafor." Michael's jaw tightened. "And?" he asked slowly. "And a divorce petition filed by Mrs. Vanessa Adeyemi," the officer added, "with claims of abandonment, domestic violence, and property division." The room went quiet. Michael turned slowly toward Vanessa. Domestic violence? He asked, disbelief mixing with anger. You want to ruin me completely? Vanessa did not raise her voice. I want the truth to be recorded, she said simply. The officer cleared his throat. Sir, you have been notified. Good day. He turned and left. The door closed softly. Michael dropped the paper on the desk. Then he slammed his fist on it. Do you know what you've done? He shouted. Vanessa flinched, but only slightly. I know exactly what I've done, she said. I stopped lying for you. Michael paced the office like a trapped animal. You think court is a joke? He snapped. You think this city is fair? Vanessa watched him carefully. I think lies don't survive light, she replied. Michael stopped pacing. He turned to her slowly. You were nothing when I met you, he said cruelly. Nothing. I gave you a name. A life. Vanessa's eyes burned, but her voice stayed steady. And I gave you 10 years, she said. 10 years of standing beside you when nobody respected you. When your company was just one desk and one generator. Michael scoffed. That doesn't mean. It means everything, Vanessa interrupted. And this time, the law will agree. Michael laughed again, but there was fear in it now. You think you will win? He asked. Against me? Vanessa leaned forward slightly. I don't need to win, she said. I just need you to stop winning with lies. She turned and walked out of the office. Michael stood alone. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he picked up his phone. 1 week later, the courthouse in Ikeja was busy. Journalists crowded the gate. Cameras flashed. Bloggers whispered excitedly. Is that him? Yes, that's Michael. The wedding guy. Where is the wife? Which one? Michael arrived in a black SUV, flanked by his lawyer and 2 bodyguards. He wore a dark suit, clean and expensive. His face was calm, but his eyes were tired. Across the compound, another car pulled in. Vanessa stepped out, simple navy dress. No makeup, hair neatly packed. She looked ordinary, but there was something strong in the way she walked. People noticed. She's the wife, someone whispered, and the one he abandoned. Yes. Cameras turned toward her. Vanessa felt her chest tighten, but she kept walking. Then another car arrived. Vivian. She stepped out slowly, wearing a modest cream-colored suit. Her face was calm, too calm. Her parents followed behind her. When Vivian saw Vanessa across the compound, their eyes met. For a second, everything stopped. They had never spoken. They had never met properly. Yet in that look, there was understanding. Pain recognized pain. Vivian gave a small nod. Vanessa nodded back. Michael watched the exchange. Something twisted inside his chest. The courtroom was packed. People squeezed into benches. Journalists sat quietly with notebooks ready. Lawyers whispered urgently to their clients. At exactly 10 a.m., the court clerk stood. All rise, she announced. Everyone stood as the judge walked in. Justice Samira. She was not tall, she was not loud. But when she sat, the room felt smaller. She adjusted her glasses and looked around the courtroom. Sit, she said. Everyone obeyed. She glanced at the case file in front of her. Michael Adeyemi, she began, you are facing 2 separate matters in this court. One involving fraud and deceit, another involving divorce and property claims. Michael nodded stiffly. Justice Samira lifted her eyes. Before we begin, she said calmly, this court will not tolerate drama. Speak when spoken to. Tell the truth. Lies waste time, and time is expensive. Her eyes settled on Michael for a second longer. Miss Vivian Okafor, the judge continued, you may proceed. Vivian stood. Her hands trembled, slightly as she adjusted her jacket. She took a deep breath. My lord, she began, I met Michael 2 years ago at a business conference in Lekki. Michael stared straight ahead. He told me he was single, Vivian continued. He told me his wife died during childbirth 5 years ago. He said he was lonely. He said he was ready to love again. She paused. Her voice cracked. I believed him. The courtroom was silent. He proposed to me, Vivian said. We planned a wedding. I invited my family, my friends, my colleagues. And on that day, his wife walked in. She swallowed. In front of everyone. There were murmurs. Justice Samira raised a hand. Silence returned. Vivien continued. I was humiliated, she said. I was deceived, and I suffered emotional damage that I am still dealing with. She turned slightly toward Michael. He stood there, she said softly, and said nothing. Vivien sat down. Justice Samira nodded, slowly. Thank you, she said. She turned to Michael. Mr. Adeyemi, she asked, were you legally married at the time you proposed to Miss Okafor? Michael shifted. Yes, he admitted. A ripple moved through the courtroom. Did you inform her? The judge asked. Michael hesitated. No, he said quietly. Justice Samira made a note. And did you claim your wife was deceased? Michael looked at his lawyer. The lawyer nodded slightly. Yes, Michael said. The judge removed her glasses and leaned forward. So you lied, she said. Michael opened his mouth. Yes, he replied. Justice Samira put her glasses back on. That will be all for now, she said. She turned to Vanessa. Mrs. Adeyemi, she said. You may speak. Vanessa stood. Her heart was pounding. My lord, she said, voice steady, I was married to Michael for 10 years. Michael looked away. We had no children, Vanessa continued, but we built a life. I supported his business. I stood by him. Then one day he stopped coming home. She paused. He blocked my number. He told his staff to deny me access. He abandoned me. Her voice shook. And when I confronted him, she added, he threatened me. The courtroom stirred. Threatened how? The judge asked. Vanessa hesitated. He said people who know too much can disappear, she said quietly. A murmur rippled again. Justice Samira's face hardened. And the domestic violence claim? The judge asked. Vanessa lifted her sleeve slightly. A faint scar was visible. This, she said simply. Michael's head snapped up. That was an accident, he shouted. Justice Samira slammed her gavel. Enough, she thundered. The room froze. Mr. Adeyemi, she said coldly, you will speak when I ask you to. Michael sat back down, breathing hard. Justice Samira closed the file slowly. This court has heard enough for today, she said. Proceedings will continue. She looked at Michael. But understand this, she added. The truth has a way of catching up. She stood. All rise. The gavel came down. Court adjourned. Outside the court, cameras flashed again. Journalists were asking too many questions. Vivien, how do you feel? Vanessa, are you afraid? Michael pushed past reporters, his face tight. Vanessa stepped aside with her lawyer. Vivien stood quietly with her parents. Suddenly, Michael stopped walking. He turned. He looked at Vanessa. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then Michael spoke. This is not over, he said. Vanessa met his gaze. I know, she replied. Vivien watched them both. Something shifted inside her. She realized this was bigger than a broken wedding. This was about consequences. As everyone began to leave, Justice Samira watched from her chamber's window. She picked up the file again and whispered. To herself, some men only understand loss. When it takes everything. That night, as Vanessa unlocked her apartment door, she froze. Something was wrong. Her door was slightly open, and from inside her dark living room, her phone began to ring. Vanessa did not move. Her hand stayed on the door handle. Her key was still halfway inside the lock. Her phone was ringing from inside the apartment. That was impossible. She had not entered yet. Her chest tightened. Her mouth went dry. The ringtone stopped. Then it rang again. Slow. Patient. Like whoever was calling knew she was standing right there, listening. Vanessa whispered, No. No, no. She pushed the door open just a little. The living room light was off, but the glow from the streetlight outside crept in through the curtain, enough to see shapes, her sofa, her small table, her phone. Lying face up on the center table, screen lighting up the dark room. It rang again. Vanessa stepped back quickly and reached into her bag, hands shaking as she searched for her spare phone. She found it and dialed her lawyer. Hello? The lawyer answered sleepily. Someone has been in my house, Vanessa whispered. My door was open. My phone is ringing inside. The lawyer's voice sharpened immediately. Do not enter. Step away from the door. Is anyone with you? No. Call the police now. Stay outside where you are. Vanessa nodded even though the lawyer couldn't see her. She hung up and dialed emergency services. As it rang, the phone inside the apartment stopped. Silence returned. That silence was worse. Vanessa stepped farther back into the corridor, pressing her back against the wall. Other tenants' doors were closed. No one was around. She felt very alone. The police arrived 15 minutes later. To Vanessa, it felt like hours. Two officers approached cautiously. Madam, you called, one asked. Yes, Vanessa replied, pointing. My door was open. Someone went inside. They entered first, guns ready. Vanessa followed slowly. Nothing was broken, nothing was stolen, but everything felt touched. Her curtains were moved. Her bedroom drawer was open. Her wardrobe door stood slightly ajar. One of the officers picked up her phone from the table. Madam, he said, any idea who could do this? Vanessa's throat tightened. She saw Michael's face in her mind, his voice. You think this is over? Yes, she said quietly. I have an idea. Michael sat in his living room, lights off, television on mute. The city buzzed outside, but inside his house there was only tension. His phone buzzed. A message. It's done. Michael exhaled, then frowned. She didn't answer, he typed. She didn't enter. The reply came. Michael slammed his phone down. Useless, he muttered. He stood and poured himself a drink. His hand shook as he lifted the glass. This was not how things were supposed to go. He was supposed to be in control. Instead, two women were dragging him into courtrooms and headlines. He drank deeply. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was his lawyer. Michael, the lawyer said without greeting, you need to calm down. Michael laughed bitterly. I am calm. No, you're not, the lawyer replied, and if you do anything stupid right now, you will destroy your case. Michael leaned against the wall. She wants to ruin me, he said. No, the lawyer corrected. She wants justice. There's a difference. Michael ended the call. Justice. He spat the word like it tasted bad. The next morning, Vanessa sat in the police station, wrapped in a borrowed sweater. She had given her statement 3 times. The officers were polite but careful. No fingerprints, one said. No forced entry. It will be difficult to prove. Vanessa nodded. I know, she said softly. Her lawyer arrived an hour later. This is intimidation, the lawyer said firmly, and it works only if you let it. Vanessa rubbed her arms. I'm scared, she admitted. The lawyer placed a hand on hers. Fear is normal, she said, but fear doesn't mean you stop. Vanessa took a deep breath. I won't stop, she said. Later that day, Vanessa received a message from an unknown number. This is Vivien. Can we talk? Vanessa stared at the screen. She hesitated, then replied, yes. They met at a small cafe in Ikeja. Quiet, hidden, safe. Vivien arrived first, dressed simply, hair tied back. She looked tired, but stronger than before. When Vanessa walked in, Vivien stood up. Thank you for coming, Vivien said. Vanessa nodded and sat down. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Vivien broke the silence. I wanted to see you, she said, because I realized something. Vanessa listened. We are not enemies, Vivien continued. He made us think we were. Vanessa's eyes softened. Yes, she said, he did. Vivien wrapped her hands around her cup. He told me you were dead, she said quietly. I believed him. Vanessa nodded slowly. I know. Vivien looked up. I'm sorry. The words hung in the air. Vanessa felt something loosen inside her chest. Thank you, she said. They sat quietly for a while. Then Vivien leaned forward. He is dangerous, she said. Not violent in public, but manipulative. Calculated. Vanessa stiffened. He broke into my house last night, she said. Vivien's eyes widened. What? He didn't steal anything, Vanessa continued. He wanted me to know he could reach me. Vivien swallowed. That's exactly what he used to do to his business partners, she said. Threaten without touching. Vanessa looked at her sharply. Business partners? Vivien nodded. I work in corporate consulting. I've seen his name. Before. Quiet settlements, silenced complaints. Vanessa leaned closer. "Do you have proof?" she asked. Vivien hesitated. "I might," she said. "Emails, messages, things he didn't think mattered." Vanessa's heart began to beat faster. "This could help both our cases," she said. Vivien nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, "and I want to help." For the first time since the wedding, Vanessa felt something new, not fear, alliance. 2 days later, Michael made his move. Vanessa woke up to her phone buzzing non-stop. Messages, calls, notifications, her name was everywhere. Abandoned wife lied for money? Sources say Vanessa planned wedding disruption. Michael Adeyemi's wife accused of blackmail. Vanessa's hands shook as she scrolled. Someone had leaked a false story. Old pictures of her were posted, out of context. Claims that she had demanded money before the wedding. Michael had gone public. Her lawyer called immediately. "This is retaliation," the lawyer said. "He's trying to break your image." Vanessa closed her eyes. "I expected this," she whispered. "But it still hurts," the lawyer replied. Vivien called next. "I saw it," she said angrily. "He's lying." Vanessa laughed weakly. "That's his favorite skill." Vivien's voice hardened. "Then it's time we stopped being quiet." Over the next week, things moved fast, very fast. Vivien handed over emails. Vanessa provided bank records, old messages, threatening voicemails, witness statements. Their lawyers worked late nights. Michael watched as his control slipped. Subpoenas followed. Investigations opened. The police reopened Vanessa's break-in case. Michael was questioned, not arrested, but watched, and for a man like Michael, being watched was unbearable. The night before court, Vanessa couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, watching the city lights flicker. Her phone buzzed. A message from Michael. "You don't know when to stop." Vanessa stared at the screen. Her fingers hovered. Then she typed back, "You taught me." She put the phone down. Her hands were steady now. Fear still existed, but it no longer ruled her. Michael sat alone again. But this time the room felt different, smaller, closing in. He stared at the wall, memories flashing, Vanessa supporting him, Vivien trusting him, the lie, the slap, the rain, the court. For the first time, a thought crept into his mind. What if I lose? He pushed it away. He stood up, pacing. "No," he said aloud, "I don't lose." But his voice sounded unsure. The next morning, as Vanessa walked toward the courthouse again, her phone rang. Unknown number, she answered cautiously. "Mrs. Adeyemi," a calm female voice said. "This is Justice Samira's clerk." Vanessa stopped walking. "Yes?" "There has been a development," the clerk continued. "New evidence has surfaced. Against your husband." Vanessa's breath caught. "What kind of evidence?" she asked. There was a pause. Then the clerk said words that made Vanessa's knees weak. "Evidence that could send him to prison. Not just divorce court." Vanessa closed her eyes, and for the first time she realized Michael wasn't just about to lose his marriage, he was about to lose everything. Vanessa stood on the pavement outside the courthouse, phone pressed to her ear, unable to move. The city was loud around her, horns, shouting, engines, but inside her head there was only one sentence repeating itself. Evidence that could send him to prison. She swallowed hard. "Prison?" she whispered into the phone. "Yes," the clerk replied, voice careful and professional. "You will hear everything inside. Please proceed to the courtroom." The call ended. Vanessa lowered the phone slowly. Her knees felt weak. This was no longer just about a marriage that failed, or a wedding that scattered in the rain. This was about a man whose lies had grown teeth. She took a deep breath and walked into the courthouse. The courtroom was much fuller than before. This time, there were uniformed officers at the corners. Journalists sat straighter, lawyers whispered less and listened more. Something had changed. Vivien was already seated, hands folded on her lap. When she saw Vanessa, she stood slightly and nodded. Vanessa nodded back. Michael arrived last. He walked in with confidence, but it was forced. His shoulders were tense, his jaw clenched too tightly. He noticed the police presence immediately. His lawyer leaned toward him and whispered urgently. Michael frowned. "What's going on?" The lawyer shook his head slightly. "I'm trying to find out." Justice Samira entered. All rise. Everyone stood. She sat, adjusted her glasses, and opened a new file, thicker than the last. Her face was unreadable. "Sit," she said. The room obeyed. Justice Samira looked straight at Michael. "Mr. Adeyemi," she began calmly, "since our last sitting, this court has received additional evidence relating to your conduct, not only toward your wife and fiancé, but toward other parties." Michael's throat went dry. "Before we proceed," the judge continued, "I want to make one thing clear. This court does not enjoy surprises, but when truth arrives late, we still make room for it." She turned slightly. "Call the investigator." A man in a dark suit stepped forward. Vanessa's heart began to race. The investigator stands to speak. "My lord," the investigator began, "I was assigned to review claims connected to Mr. Adeyemi's business dealings following reports received after this case became public." Michael shifted in his seat. "We discovered patterns," the investigator continued, "false declarations, intimidation of partners, undisclosed settlements." Murmurs rippled. Through the courtroom, Justice Samira raised a hand. Silence returned. "One particular report," the investigator said, opening a file, "stood out. A former business partner who withdrew a complaint 3 years ago." Michael's lawyer stood abruptly. "My lord, relevance—" Justice Samira cut him off with a look. "Sit," she said. "You will have your turn." The lawyer sat. The investigator continued. "This partner reported receiving threats after questioning certain financial transfers," he said. "Shortly after, his office was broken into. Nothing was stolen." Vanessa's chest tightened. Nothing stolen, just like her apartment. Michael's eyes flicked toward her. Vanessa did not look away. "The partner later withdrew his complaint and left the country," the investigator continued. "Last week, after seeing reports of this case, he contacted authorities again." Justice Samira leaned forward. "And what did he provide?" she asked. The investigator held up a flash drive. "Emails, audio recordings, and bank transfer records." The courtroom held its breath. Michael stood suddenly. "This is nonsense," he shouted. "People are trying to destroy me." Justice Samira slammed her gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Adeyemi," she said sharply. "One more outburst, and I will have you removed." Michael sat, but his hands were shaking now. "Play the audio," Justice Samira ordered. The investigator nodded. A device was connected. The room filled with a voice, Michael's voice, calm and cold. "You don't need to fight this. Withdraw the complaint. I don't want problems." Another voice responded, nervous. "You can't just take my shares like that." Michael's voice again. "People who push too hard disappear." "I don't want you to disappear." The audio ended. The silence afterward was thick. Vanessa felt dizzy. She had heard those words before, not recorded, but whispered to her in anger. Justice Samira removed her glasses slowly. "Mr. Adeyemi," she said, "do you recognize this voice?" Michael's mouth opened, closed. "Yes," he said finally. The judge nodded once. "Thank you." Vivien felt sick. She stared at Michael as if seeing him for the first time, not as a liar, but as something worse, a man who used fear like a tool. She remembered moments that suddenly made sense, the way he disliked being questioned, the way he reacted when she once asked about his finances, the way his smile never reached his eyes. Her hands trembled. She leaned toward her mother and whispered, "I could have married this man." Her mother squeezed her hand. "But you didn't," she whispered back. Justice Samira turned toward Vanessa. "Mrs. Adeyemi," she said, "you mentioned a break-in at your residence." "Yes, my lord." "Did anything go missing?" "No," Vanessa replied. "Did you feel threatened?" "Yes." Justice Samira nodded. "Based on the pattern presented," she said, "this court recognizes intimidation as a consistent behavior." Michael buried his face in his hands for a brief moment. When he lifted it again, his eyes were red. "My lord," Michael said suddenly, standing again, this time quieter, "I made mistakes, I admit that. But prison, that's too much." Justice Samira studied him carefully. "Mistakes are forgetting dates," she said. "What you are describing is a pattern." Michael's voice cracked. "I worked hard for everything I have." Vanessa felt something twist inside her chest. She remembered the nights she stayed awake, helping him plan, encouraging him, believing in him. Yes, Justice Samira replied, and you chose to protect it with fear. Michael sank back into his seat. For the first time, he looked small. Justice Samira closed the file slowly. This court will take a short recess, she announced. When we return, we will address two matters. She paused. 1. Damages claimed by Miss Vivian Okafor. 2. The dissolution of marriage and division of assets between Mr. and Mrs. Adeyemi. Her eyes sharpened. And depending on the findings, a possible referral for criminal prosecution. The gavel struck, court recessed. During the recess, the hallway buzzed. Reporters whispered urgently, "This is big. He might go to jail." From wedding scandal to prison? Vivian stood near a window, breathing slowly. Vanessa joined her. They stood side by side without speaking. After a moment, Vivian said softly, "I'm glad you walked into that hall." Vanessa looked at her. "So am I," she replied. Michael stood at the other end of the hallway with his lawyer. His voice was low, desperate. "You said this wouldn't happen." The lawyer sighed. "I said we could manage the divorce, not the criminal side." Michael's face drained of color. "What do I do?" The lawyer hesitated. "Prepare," he said, "for loss." Michael leaned against the wall. Loss. The word echoed. Back in court, everyone returned to their seats. Justice Samira entered again. "All rise." They stood. She sat. "This court has considered the evidence presented," she began. "We will now address damages." Vivian's heart pounded. "Miss Okafor," the judge said, "you were deceived into a marriage ceremony under false pretenses." Vivian nodded. "You suffered public humiliation and emotional distress." Justice Samira continued, "This court finds your claim valid." Michael closed his eyes. "Mr. Adeyemi," the judge said, "you are ordered to pay damages." She paused. The room leaned forward. $800,000. A gasp went through the courtroom. Vivian's knees nearly gave way. Her mother grabbed her hand. Justice Samira continued. "Now, regarding the marriage between Mr. and Mrs. Adeyemi." Vanessa held her breath. 10 years of marriage, the judge said. Shared life, shared contribution, abandonment established. Michael's head dropped. "This court orders the dissolution of the marriage," Justice Samira said firmly, "and awards 50% of all marital assets to Mrs. Vanessa Adeyemi." Vanessa's vision blurred. She felt tears rise, but she forced them back. "Not now, not here." Justice Samira raised her hand. "This is not the end," she added. "Given the evidence presented today, this court will forward findings to the appropriate authorities for criminal review." Michael looked up sharply. "Meaning?" he whispered. Justice Samira met his eyes. "Meaning," she said, "this is no longer just about money." The gavel came down. As court adjourned, officers approached Michael quietly. "Sir," one said, "we need you to come with us for further questioning." Michael stood slowly. The room watched. Vanessa watched. Vivian watched. Michael turned once, his eyes landing on Vanessa. Not with anger, not with threat, but with fear. Real fear. And as he followed the officers out of the courtroom, Vanessa realized something that made her chest ache and her spine straighten at the same time. The man who once controlled everything had finally lost control. Michael sat in the small interview room, hands clasped together, staring at the plain white wall. No leather chair, no glass office, no assistants waiting outside, just a ticking clock and 2 officers watching him quietly. For the first time in many years, Michael Adeyemi had nowhere to hide. The officer across from him cleared his throat. "Mr. Adeyemi, this is not an arrest," he said calmly. "This is questioning." Michael nodded, though his chest felt tight. He had built his life on appearances, confidence, power, success. But stripped of those things, he felt exposed. Small. "Do you understand why you're here?" the officer asked. Michael swallowed. "Yes." "Good," the officer replied. "Let's begin." The questions came slowly at first. Business dealings, bank transfers, threats. Michael answered some, avoided others. Each time he tried to sound confident, his voice cracked just a little. The officer leaned back in his chair. "You know," he said, "men like you usually think their biggest mistake is getting caught." Michael looked up sharply. "But that's not it," the officer continued. "Your biggest mistake is thinking people won't talk." Michael felt sweat gather at his temples. "They always talk," the officer added. "Eventually." Michael looked away. For years he had convinced himself that fear was loyalty. That silence meant agreement. Now that belief was collapsing around him. Outside the station, Vanessa stepped into the sun and closed her eyes. The air felt different. Her lawyer stood beside her. "You did well," she said softly. Vanessa nodded, though her legs still felt unsteady. Across the parking lot, Vivien stood with her parents, phone pressed to her ear. "Yes," Vivien said quietly, "I understand. No, I don't want revenge. I want closure." She ended the call and turned toward Vanessa. Their eyes met again. This time, Vanessa spoke first. "It's strange," she said. "I thought today would make me happy." Vivien nodded. "Me too." "But it doesn't," Vanessa continued. "It just feels final." Vivien gave a small, sad smile. "Some endings are like that." They stood together for a moment, two women connected not by friendship, but by truth. By evening, the news had spread. Not gossip, facts, investigations, possible criminal charges. Michael's phone buzzed non-stop, but the calls were different now. Not congratulations. One by one, business partners withdrew. Meetings were cancelled. A major contract was paused pending review. Michael watched it happen like a slow leak he could not stop. When he finally returned home that night, the house felt cold. Too quiet. He walked into the living room and stopped. Half the furniture was already marked with legal tags: inventory, division, reality. Michael sank into a chair and buried his face in his hands. For the first time, he cried, not loud, not dramatic, just tears sliding down his face as he realized something painful and clear. Everything he built on lies. Vanessa did not celebrate. She went home, packed a small bag, and stayed with a friend for the night. Sleep came slowly, but when it came, it was deep. The next morning, she woke up early and sat by the window watching Lagos wake up. Horns, voices, life moving on. Her phone buzzed, a bank alert. She stared at the screen. The first transfer had landed, part of what the court ordered. Her hand shook, not with excitement, but with disbelief. She whispered to herself, "This is real." Later that day, she met her lawyer again. "We'll structure everything carefully," the lawyer said. "Investments, accounts, protection." Vanessa nodded. For 10 years, she had lived inside someone else's shadow. Now she was stepping into her own light, and she wanted to do it right. Vivien returned to her apartment that evening and sat alone in silence. The wedding dress was gone, packed away, but the memories still lingered. She opened her laptop and stared at a blank document. For weeks, she had felt frozen. Now something inside her stirred. She began to type, not a letter, not a complaint, a plan. She wrote about supply chains, distribution, demand in Ikeja markets. She had worked in retail consulting for years. She knew food. She knew people. By midnight, she had an outline. By morning, she had resolve. She would not let humiliation define her. She would build something that belonged to her. Days passed. Michael was released after questioning, but not relieved. Every knock on the door made his heart jump. Every unknown number felt like danger. He sat alone one afternoon, staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. The man looking back at him looked older, smaller and tired. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he whispered to his reflection. But the reflection did not answer. Because intention does not erase impact. One evening, Vanessa received a message. From Michael. "Can we talk? Just talk." Vanessa stared at the screen for a long time. Her chest tightened. Old fear knocked. Then she typed back, "No." She put the phone down. That single word felt powerful. Not angry, not cruel, just firm. Lagos moved fast. Scandals came and went. But this one lingered. People talked about the lies, about the consequences, about women who refused to stay silent. Vanessa became a quiet symbol. Vivien became a cautionary tale. Michael became a naive example for men to learn from. Late one night, Michael sat alone again, scrolling through old photos. Him and Vanessa, smiling, hopeful, him and Vivien, posing, confident. 2 lives he had broken. His phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "You should prepare yourself." Michael's heart dropped. "Prepare for what?" he typed back. "Who is this?" No reply. He stared at the screen as dread crept up his spine. The next morning, Vanessa stood in a large, empty, quiet office space, sunlight streaming through tall windows. "This could be it," the agent said. "Warehouse access. Export ready." Vanessa walked slowly across the floor. She closed her eyes and imagined it. Crates, movement, growth. She smiled. "Yes," she said softly, "this will do." Vivien stood outside a modest shop space in Ikeja. The sign above was old. The floor needed work, but she could see it. Shelves, customers, life. She turned to her father. "I'm ready," she said. He smiled proudly. "I know." That same evening, Michael received another official letter. This one heavier, more serious. He opened it slowly. His hands trembled. It was not from the divorce court. It was from another department entirely. Michael sank onto the couch. He whispered, "No, please." But silence answered him. As Vanessa signed the first documents to begin her new business, her phone rang. It was her lawyer. "Vanessa," she said urgently, "Michael has been formally charged." Vanessa closed her eyes. At the same time, across the city, Michael sat alone in the dark, staring at the letter in his hands, realizing that the next chapter of his life would not be written by him, but by the law. The prison van did not look dramatic. No siren, no shouting. Just a dull black vehicle parked quietly beside the courthouse. Michael Adeyemi stood at the top of the short steps, hands clasped in front of him, staring at the ground. This was not how he imagined consequences. He thought consequences would be loud, violent and public. But this was quiet, and somehow that made it worse. An officer touched his elbow gently. "Sir." Michael nodded and stepped forward. As the door closed behind him, something inside him finally broke. Not with anger, not with pride, but with regret. Michael sat on the hard bench inside the holding area, staring at the grey wall. Time slowed. He replayed moments he once ignored. Vanessa waiting up late, her voice asking questions he refused to answer. Vivien smiling at him with full trust. The wedding hall, the slap, the rain. For the first time, he did not blame anyone else. Not Vanessa, not Vivien, not the court. He blamed himself. And that realization hurt more than the handcuffs. Vanessa woke up early. She did not rush. She made tea and sat by the window, watching the city breathe. She thought she would feel joy knowing Michael had been charged. But what she felt was peace, not happiness. Peace. Her phone buzzed. A message from her lawyer. "It's official. Charges have been filed. You are safe." Vanessa closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. 10 years of fear did not disappear overnight. But something important had changed. She was no longer waiting for the next blow. She was moving forward. Later that day, she walked through her warehouse again. Now signed, now hers. Workers greeted her politely. She smiled back. This place smelled like new beginnings. The grocery store opened quietly. No cameras, no speeches, just shelves filled with food, rice, beans, oil, fresh produce. The sign read simply, "Vivien Foods, quality you can trust." Vivien stood behind the counter, nervous and excited at the same time. Her first customer walked in, then another, then another. By noon, the store was alive. Vivien felt something warm spread in her chest. This was hers, not borrowed, not built on lies, just honest work. Her mother stopped by later and hugged her tightly. "I'm proud of you," she said. Vivien smiled. So was she. Weeks passed. Michael's case moved slowly through the system. There were no shortcuts now, no favors, no threats. His company was placed under review. Accounts frozen, assets divided. The world he once controlled became something he only watched from a distance. Vanessa used her settlement carefully. She did not rush into luxury. She invested and learned. She asked questions. She traveled, not for escape, but for knowledge. She met exporters, traders, and partners. By the end of the year, her cocoa export business had grown beyond expectations. Contracts signed, shipments sent. Her name began to appear, not in gossip, but in business circles. People stopped introducing her as Michael's wife. They called her Vanessa Adeyemi, entrepreneur, and she liked that very much. The day Michael returned to his empty house, the silence welcomed him, like a mirror. No laughter, no voices, just echo. He dropped his small bag by the door and sat on the floor. He cried, not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind that comes when a man finally understands how much he has lost. He had money once, power, fear. Now he had time and regret. Sometimes he imagined calling Vanessa, apologizing. But apologies do not fix broken years. They only explain them. He did not call. One evening, months later, Vanessa and Vivien met again. Same cafe, same quiet corner, different people. Vivien looked stronger, Vanessa looked lighter. They talked about business, about life, about mistakes. Vivien stirred her drink thoughtfully. "Do you ever think about him?" she asked. Vanessa nodded. "Sometimes." Vivien smiled softly. "Me too." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Vivien said, "I don't hate him anymore." Vanessa looked at her. "I don't either," Vanessa replied, "but I won't forget." Vivien nodded. "That's the difference," she said. The final hearing was brief. No drama, no shouting. The judge reviewed the files, the evidence, the pattern. Michael stood quietly. Justice Samira spoke clearly. "Mr. Adeyemi," she said, "this court recognizes remorse, but remorse does not erase harm." Michael nodded. "You will face the consequences of your actions," she continued, "and you will have time to reflect." The gavel came down. Final. As Michael was led away, he looked back once. Vanessa was not there, neither was Vivien. They were already living their next chapters. Vanessa became one of the largest cocoa exporters to European markets within 2 years. She employed women, trained them, paid them well. Marriage had failed her, but life had not. She no longer rushed into love. She invested in herself. Maybe one day, she thought, but not now. Vivien's grocery business expanded. 1 store became 2, 2 became 5. She became known in entire Nigeria, not for scandal, but for quality and fairness. She learned to trust again, slowly and carefully. Michael worked quietly after his release. Smaller jobs, no shortcuts, no control, just survival. Some nights he sat alone and stared at the ceiling, thinking, learning the hard way. This story teaches that lies may travel fast, but truth always arrives. It teaches that patience is not weakness, but silence in the face of abuse is dangerous. It teaches that power without honesty becomes a weapon, and weapons eventually turn on the one holding them. It teaches that marriage is not ownership, and love built on deception will collapse, no matter how expensive the wedding is. And most importantly, it teaches that walking away is not losing. Sometimes walking away is how you finally win. Michael believed control was strength. He confused fear with respect. When his lies were exposed, he lost the only language he knew. Vanessa believed loyalty would save her marriage. When it didn't, she learned that self-respect is the strongest form of protection. Vivien believed love required trust. After betrayal, she learned that trust must be earned, and that her worth does not depend on a man's truthfulness. And that was how a wedding that ended in rain became the beginning of 3 very different lives. What did you learn from this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.